Welcome to Change Happened, Then What? A place where I will be joined with weekly guests sharing their change happened moments. Each week, you're going to hear from individuals whose lives have taken unexpected turns, leading to profound revelations and growth. These moments of change are not merely anecdotes, but they're powerful narratives that can inspire and motivate. So, as you listen, allow yourself to be drawn into their journeys. Picture yourself in their shoes, feeling their triumphs and challenges. Each episode is an invitation to explore, to learn, and to connect with the deeper parts of your own journey. I promise you won't want to miss a single story. Get ready for a roller coaster of emotions, insights, and most importantly, healing. Let's embark on this journey together, one story at a time. Hi, I'm your host, Heather Holt. It's great to have you here today. Let me introduce you to Jeannie, a remarkable woman who has been a pillar of strength in my life. Initially, I thought she would just be my banker, but she turned out to be so much more. We bonded over shared grief when I lost my brother and she lost her precious 8-year-old daughter in a tragic car accident. For over 20 years, Jeannie has been my unwavering supporter, encouraging me to share my story and step behind the mic. And now, here I am, behind the mic, with Jeannie as my first guest. I couldn't be more excited to share her incredible journey with you. Over 2 decades ago, she faced the unimaginable loss of her only daughter, Isla, in a tragic car accident. Yet through this heart-wrenching experience, she discovered a miraculous way to stay connected with her beloved daughter. The Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines grief as this: grief is a deep sorrow, especially that caused by someone's death. It can also refer to trouble or an annoyance. And I think I can definitely get behind the fact that death is an annoyance. But Jeannie Lynch also has her own definition of grief, and it's acceptance. When we step into true acceptance of our grief, we can heal our grief. Sometimes in order to move on, it is important to look back every now and then to accept the space in between the years, is how she teaches it. And when I compare the two definitions, I realize that both are true depending on where you are on your journey. One may be more true for you than another. And through her journey, Jeannie has shown that even in the darkest of moments, there is a path to healing and a way to keep the memory of your loved ones alive in your heart. Hey Jeannie, welcome to Change Happened, Then What? Can you start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and how we met?
Hey Heather, I'm so happy to be on your show. First off, just have to introduce myself because I know you know me because we go back years. So when I think about your audience today and I think about who am I, what am I am completely different from where you and I when we first started, because it's been a beautiful journey of awakening and really uncovering and discovering all the beauty in the world. And I really believe this, and I hope people who are listening can agree that it's sometimes the darkness that brings you the light. So 25 years in banking, as you know, helping you get your business started, marketing and helping people do that aspect and connecting and networking and all that led me to Florida, where I have changed all that, and now I just have my beautiful spiritual business, my YouTube channel, where I help people connect to their own spirituality and to this day still get through those dark times by adding light to their life. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Jeannie. It's awesome to have you here today, too. I'll make sure to put links for all of your YouTube channels and socials in the show notes for sure. And please, everybody, make sure to go check her out because she's pretty freaking awesome. Okay, Jeannie, time to dive in. I'm going to ask you that question. Can you take us back to that fateful day that you found out that Isla was in that tragic car accident and that she was never coming home again?
My story starts where most stories start. I got the call. I got the call from my ex-husband's ex-wife to tell me that there had been an accident and I needed to get to the hospital as soon as I could. You know, so many questions when you first get the call. I did just as I was told. I got to the hospital to find out that my daughter and her grandmother were both in the accident. The grandmother had also passed that day, and that my daughter at the time when the accident took place was non-responsive at the scene. They had brought her back. They had brought her in. She was in another room, and I was met at the door from a social worker who was going to take me down to see her for the very first time. And I won't forget that because the woman pulled me into a room and said to me, "I feel like I need to prepare you before you see your daughter for the possibility of your daughter actually living." And it was the actual living part that really brought home how significant this accident had actually been, because she knew that if my daughter was going to live, that there would be a whole other aspect of this that I needed to prepare myself for. So that was my kind of first awareness that this was not, it was getting worse as we were going on, right? So when I got in to see my daughter for the very first time, I was first grateful that, yes, she had been in a tragic accident. There was head trauma, but she didn't appear to look like somebody who had been in that type of an accident. There was a little bruise over one of her eyes, and her nickname was I, so it was all manageable at this point. But I will tell you, as soon as I saw her, I knew she was not there. I felt that disconnection of life. A mother knows, right? So I remembered the machine started to kind of go off and beep, and they started to move me out of the way, and, you know, something was kind of happening at that moment. And I remembered asking my sister, who was with me in the room, what are they doing? Why are they doing this? Almost like, you know, leave her alone, right? And my sister looked at me and said, "Jeannie, they're trying to save your daughter right now." And I was like, "You don't get it. She is not there." So that was kind of the beginning. And I won't go into all the detail of what it was like to be in the hospital with all the ups and downs and the rest of it. But I will tell you that at 2:00 that afternoon, they pronounced her brain dead. And from that moment, you know, I stayed in the hospital until there was nothing else to do as far as signing the papers and the rest of it. I left at 5:00 that afternoon, and there's where this story really starts, because on the other side of the door and on the other side of the glass was that moment where I was about to step into my new life. And, you know, I think of the name of your podcast, Change Happened, Then What? There's that moment of uncertainty. I didn't know how, I didn't know where, I didn't know what, I didn't know what, I didn't know anything. I was still in complete shock walking out. Wasn't even sure where I was going to go. Home, in the car. I mean, that true feeling of lost in one moment is something that, for anyone who's had to be in that experience, you know, it is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Thank you for letting me share that.
Jeannie, I don't know how many times I've heard that story over the years, and I can never control my tears. I'm editing this, and every time I have to listen to it, I start crying again. So I certainly do appreciate you sharing that part of your journey with us. In the months that would follow, Jeannie would find herself in the depths of grief. The deep, dark kind of grief where you don't know if your clothes are on inside out or not, You don't remember if you turned the stove off before you left the house? Did you lock the door? Did I do the dog? How did I get to work? Did I drive here? Did I walk? Oh my God, am I still alive? What am I doing here? Why? And then, one night, lying in bed, Jeannie gets a message. And that message is from Isla.
Get the jar, Mommy. Get the jar, Mommy. And I hear it and I go, what? Like, it's this little voice in my head. And I remember where I am in my grief. I'm not reading people yet. I'm not working with people spiritually. I'm not helping other mothers grieve. I am in the thick of my grief trying to get through the first anniversary, okay? And I hear this little voice say, get the jar. And I knew what the jar was, so let me take a second to tell you what the jar was. The jar was this, if you remember, this little jar that sat on her gravesite, and it said, please don't come here and grieve. I'm trying to get through the holidays, and I really don't want it to be this negative thing. If you're coming here and you're grieving in any way, can you shift this to a story about my daughter and place it in the jar? And I'm hoping that other people who come here will also just immerse in this jar and they'll all be okay with it and we'll get through together, you know, because my whole life has been community, right? So, you know, it takes a village, you know, and I think being part of a big family and, you know, all that, and my spiritual community and my work community, and everything was always that, right? Wasn't going to do it alone. Yeah. I hear this and I get pissed, like you and your weather right now. It's freaking cold. I know where the graveyard is. It's down at the end of the street. My daughter and I used to do spooky walks in the graveyard, so I know it's cold. I have no intention of going and getting this jar, but my daughter is insisting, right? Get the jar, Mommy, get the jar. So I kind of put the covers over my head. I'm kind of freaking out because it really does sound like her, and I'm thinking, why would I think this, okay? Why would this thought come into my head? But it makes sense because I know there's a jar at her graveyard. So this goes on for 20 minutes. Now I'm starting to get pissed and I can't sleep. So I make the stupid or the best choice I've ever made, and I throw the covers back and I'm angry and I get in the car, right? Because I'm grieving and I'm not thinking straight. I drive to the graveyard. I get out. I'm post-holing through the snow. I'm on my way to her grave star, and this is not a place I want to be because it terrifies me to be in this graveyard by myself. And I walk over and I grab the jar, and I remember pulling the jar to my chest and saying to my daughter on the other side, this better be freaking good. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, why I am listening, you know, I'm angry, but I'm also like, all right, you know, you better make this good when I get home. There better be a good reason in here. So I get home, I'm thinking some beautiful little note, something spiritual is going to happen here, and I dump this jar out on my bed, and I start going through the notes, and sure enough, I find this note in the jar that is so bad. Someone had showed up pissed that I was asking to be happy, and don't know who it is. I don't think it was my ex-husband. Not going to put that out there that it was, but I think it was someone that was on his side of his thinking and grief, you know, at the time. And again, everything's changed since then, right? So it's, you know, you bitch, you know, I can't believe this is what you're asking people to do, you know, and, you know, if there's a God, you know, do you think you think your daughter would be where she is? And, you know, and just, it's like every opposite thing that I was trying. You know what I mean? It's like the vial within the vial within the vial of the grief, right? So when I talk about vial, I'm talking about like getting sick vial, not vial as in jar, you know. So okay, there's my moment. Okay, it's gonna be hard to say that. There's my moment, right?
There's your moment.
There's my moment. I drop, you know, I drop over the note, and now I remember hearing, you know, years ago, give it up to God, right? You know, it's bigger than you can handle, and, you know, so offer it up, right? So now I'm like in a rage, and thank God it was winter because the doors were closed, because I really do, and not to be dramatic, if the windows had been open, someone would have heard me I am screaming at the top of my lungs, and it's not good. And I say to this person who I believe to be my savior, my God, right? And I'm going, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. Do it. You want it. Everybody tells me to give it up to you. This is more than I can bear. So imagine in that moment that it was more than leaving the hospital, more than pulling the plug, more than getting the call. It was, I have tried to remain positive through this whole thing and the grace of God and blah, blah, blah. And here I am. Somebody's just kicking me at the knees when there's nothing left to kick, right? And I'm on my knees, literally. So that moment, I didn't know what was going to happen next, but that is my turnaround moment. That is my change happens, then what? Because I went to bed that night, too sick to call into work. I can't go to work the next day because I've been up all night wailing. Call out to work, just in the thick of my grief. I'm going to stay home all day and feel sorry for myself. And all of a sudden, the school calls at 11 o'clock. Now, coincidentally, the person who calls me is the principal of my daughter's school, who ended up being the number one mentor in my life, that came into my life when I was in high school, getting ready to make all the wrong decisions, those decisions, right? I'm going to either go to class or go into the woods. You know what I mean? Because then I could do all the things you're not supposed to do in the woods at high school, okay? I'm either going to be part of the program or I'm going to be part of the problem, and what deck I was on back in my high school. So this woman came into my life at a critical time and who, got me into cheerleading and told me I could do it and gave me hope and all this. She calls me because she's the principal of my daughter's school now. And she says, Jeannie, we're on our way to go to the graveyard because we all have notes for your daughter. We heard there was a jar there, and yet the jar's not there. Can I come over and give this to you? Okay? And so I'm like, yeah. Okay, so she shows up at my house. We have a beautiful cup of tea. We spent the morning, crying together. And she brings in this box that was too big to go into the jar anyway. So it all kind of was, but the point is that from that moment on, everything changed. Yeah. I wasn't carrying it anymore. I literally, and hate to sound cliche, but I got to that moment where I realized that it wasn't for me to do. It wasn't for the community to do. That it was life. It was happening for me, not against me, not to me. All those, and they are cliches, but they're cliches for a reason. They're truth. And for you and I, this is what we have spent our 20 years realizing, is that all those things that we heard in the very beginning, those truths that have been handed down 1,000 times over, that it is the truth that we're all kind of seeking that is our reality, which is life is just quick. You appreciate what you have, you know what I mean? Turn your terrible times into something valuable. As my mom taught me, she pulled me over at the funeral and said, almost angry at me, don't let this be the event that defines you, Jeannie Lynch. Don't be the event that defines you, meaning your life is going to be more than the loss of your daughter. And I remembered thinking, oh my God, have a little compassion right now, Mom. But what she really was saying is, what I've come to understand is, it has become the gift that I have to offer. So, the turnaround for that, or the message at the end of the story, is that when you do that, you become in service, and not in a martyr way, but in a I'm going to turn it into gold kind of a way, then your life opens up, because I would never have been attracted to you. Our attraction to each other was that we had this grief story in common, that my loved one and your loved one brought us together, and we were going to do that work together. And then in walks our mentor, and in walks the connection to spirit, and then the path that we've been on, and we've separated, right? Because life happens. I'm in Florida now, you're in Vermont, but we're just as connected as we were from that moment you walked through the bank 20-something years ago to today.
It is so true that I feel just as connected with you today as I did the day we met. You know, you have that handful of friends that you can count on, and no matter what, you are certainly one of those for me, Jeannie Lynch. Over the years, Jeannie and I have grieved in many different ways. And 19 years later, our grief today looks very different than it did when we first met. And she often says she doesn't grieve anymore. However, that's not to say that she didn't. In this part of our conversation, she dives into that a little bit more to share with you her journey back from that experience.
I want to go back to this idea that I don't grieve and that, you know, it's been 20 years and I'm on the other side of it and stuff. But I also don't think that I do a really good job in trying to explain to people my grief journey by telling them just how hard it was, because I think a lot of it, you know, you try not to stay in that space. But if I told you I was having out-of-body experiences and I was disassociating, I was post-traumatic stress from taking my daughter off life support, I can't remember the first 2 years, and this is when you and I met. So it isn't that I didn't go through the worst of it. I just can't remember a lot of it because I think I was in such trauma having been in it. But I also believe that it is that journey back from that has been the real journey. You know, so I never want to sound like it wasn't hard for me, or, you know, or that people think, oh, you know, what am I doing wrong if I'm still grieving? And hell no, right? Because there was a period of a few years, and I'm always careful about saying anything linear to anyone in the grief journey because everyone's journey is their own, you know. You and I once went to support you in your suicide prevention, and I remembered this woman getting up and telling the story, and there was not a dry eye in the room, and, you know, and so at the end, we all stood in line to talk to her, and I remember going up to the line and getting to her and saying, oh my God, the story you told was so amazing, and do you mind if I ask how long ago? 25 years ago.
Yeah.
When she told me 25 years, she remembered the detail. Like, you remember when you found out about your brother and got the call, right? How long did it take you to get through that initial, like, telling the story of the day you found out, you know? It took a while, right? So, but this woman was still there. And I thought, that's a point I guess I want to make, is that so many people that you meet along your own journey will also be teaching you what not to do, but just like, wow, I don't want to experience it that way, or this way seems to work better for me. And that's all you're trying to do, is navigate your own grief for your own experience, so you can get the furthest out of it, or, you know, whatever. So that's kind of the journey in between the journey, I guess, and making people realize that it isn't like I just got here.
And after witnessing Jeannie's life without Isla for 20 years, and growing to know Jeannie's family and friends over the last 19 years, I can attest that this journey has been anything but easy for them. She chose not to let her daughter's spirit die in that tragic car accident, but to let it continue to shine through her every day. Though I have both of my children and cannot fully grasp the depth of Jeannie's loss, I know that her strength and grace in the face of such heartache make her an absolute hero in my eyes. She shows up in the world with an unwavering spirit, making it a better place simply by being in it. Her journey is a testament to the power of love and the human spirit, reminding us all that even in the darkest times, there is a way to keep moving forward with our loved one's memory alive in our hearts. I asked Jeannie if there was one message she wanted to make sure everybody had today, what would it be? And this is what she said.
So I think it would be irresponsible at this place in our life to give a message and to have it not reflect kind of where we are in the world right now. So for those people who are feeling uncertain about the future, because change happens and then what, right? Everyone is truly feeling this way right now because of everything that's going on in the world. There seems to be so much division and unrest, and no one knows who to believe and what news to watch and who's telling the truth, and did they really say that? Did they really mean that? I mean, I hate to put so much angst into what other people are saying, but we only have what we're being given, right? And that's kind of my message too. It's time to turn it all off, get the daily news, click it out, and then guess what? You are the only person who can discern, decide, trust, and it all has to come from within. No one can tell you. They can't even tell you how to heal. They can't tell you what to do, and you should do this and over that. And there's so many people, and I'm one of them, who tries to assist people through these processes and share their story, because you can learn so much when someone else shares their story. You're listening to this today, right? We're just doing the work of offering, but you get to decide what you take on, what lines up with you, what you believe. And I will tell you, I am not at all, and Heather, I'm sure you can say the same, we are not the people that we were 20 years ago. Thank God. We've evolved. So we're still evolving, and we will continue to evolve. So the message is to trust your own connection to Source. And if you don't have one, then the step before that is to develop that, because that's going to help you navigate these really difficult times.
Such profound words to share, especially in times like these when we could all use a gentle reminder to trust ourselves just a little more. It is my desire that with each of these interviews, we can leave you with a little more hope and a smile. So as we wrapped up our conversation, I asked Jeannie, what keeps you smiling every day after walking such a profound and painful journey? What she shared was nothing short of beautiful and a true testament to a mother's love.
Always feeling connected. I'm having a flashback to being at work right after she passed and looking at this beautiful picture that I still have next to my desk today, and missing her energy, and just looking at the picture and remembering what it was like to physically feel her in my space, and just grieving that connection. And somehow in my journey that it came off the photo, and it's with me now. I don't feel that separation that I first felt in the very beginning of my grief, which is you just miss them so much physically, right? You miss their smell, you miss the day-to-day activity, you miss the frustration, you miss all of it, right? The experience of having them in your life. And yet today, I don't feel disconnected in any way, and it's been 20 years. So that connection and feeling her connected to me and to all the people that I love in my life through love, I feel very connected and blessed to feel that way. That keeps me smiling.
I love you.
Love you too.
We end our conversation with our usual goodbyes, and I want to leave you with this poem called Isla's Moon. If you're up at 9:30, when the moon is up in the starlit sky, you will know why the moon is there, to shine a bright, glittery trail to a place where happiness is all there is. No wars, no guns, no need to fight. That's the place I'll be tonight. This poem was written by Elise Tenney, age 8, for Isla. Thanks for listening to today's episode.
There's always a reason to always choose joy. There's something deeper that the world can't destroy. Smile when you think you can't. Smile, get up and dance. Smile, there's a bigger plan. The storm only lasts for a while.
Our
So
theme music is
smile.
by Sidewalk Prophets from their album Things That Got Us Here. You can find them on YouTube or sidewalkprophets.com. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Change Happened, Then What? If today's episode touched your heart or inspired you in any way, I invite you to join us in making a difference in somebody else's life. Your presence and engagement means the world to me. This can be done by making a financial contribution at changehappenedpodcast.com and click on the Support Us tab. Whether a one-time gift or a monthly commitment, it is crucial in helping me deliver more meaningful content in fueling this mission. And if you can't contribute financially, please share this episode with someone who you think might benefit from it, like your best friend, your brain surgeon, your veterinarian, your primary care physician. Everybody's got one of those. Don't forget Grandma. What is she baking this week? Something yummy, I'm sure. And also, your actions like subscribing, following, and commenting on Apple Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts are vital in building this community. Together, we can create a ripple effect of change. If you have a story that you'd like to share, you can contact me at www.changehappenedpodcast.com. Thank you to all of you listeners. I am eternally grateful. Be the reason someone smiles today. Change Happened, Then What? Is brought to you by Holt Hill Studios. It's written, edited, and created by me, Heather Holt, with the help of her fur babies, Waylon and Dalton.